Motion was made by Councilman Desume to approve tab J with the amendment stated on the record, seconded by Vice Mayor Galvin.
No, he's not
He's
vice mayor
not
yet.
vice mayor
Not
yet.
yet.
He'll be vice mayor in 6 months.
Yes, next year.
In
I'm
December.
not the vice mayor. I'm in a vice mayor in like 15 minutes.
Councilman Vice Mayor Desume, it was made. Motion
No,
was
Councilman Desulme.
Carol is the vice mayor.
okay. All right. So the motion was made by Councilman Desume, seconded by Councilman Galvin with the amendments. Roll call vote. Councilwoman Keys, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councilman
Mayor Keys.
Bieneme, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councilman Desume, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councilman Galvin, how do you vote?
Yes.
Ordinance is approved 5-0
The
with.
mayor.
You didn't get the mayor.
Oh, I'm sorry. Mayor Joseph, how do you vote?
No.
Okay. Item was approved 4-1 with the amendments. Tab K. Let's see if we can do a better job here. Proposed ordinance of the mayor and city council of the city of North Miami, Florida, adopting the evaluation and appraisal based amendments to the city of North Miami comprehensive plan in accordance with the requirements of Rule 73C-49, Florida Administrative Code, and Section 163.3191, Florida Statutes 2014, amending the future land use, transportation, housing, infrastructure, coastal management, conservation, parks and recreation, intergovernmental coordination, economic, public school facilities, and capital improvements elements of the North Miami Comprehensive Plan, adding a climate change element to the North Miami Comprehensive Plan, providing for annual update to the capital improvement elements specific to capital improvements scheduled, providing for data and analysis supporting adoption of goals, objectives, and policies of the elements, providing for transmittal and subsequent adoption of amendments, additions and deletions to the goals, objectives, and policies of the elements, providing for transmittal of such proposed amendments to the State Land Planning Agency for review in accordance with Section 163.3184, subparagraph 3, Florida Statute 2014, providing for repeal, conflicts, severability, codification, and for an effective date.
Thank you. I believe there is a staff presentation.
Sure. I'd like to turn it over to Tanya Wilson-Sejuru, Community Planning Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. For the record again, Tanya Wilson-Sejuru with the Community Planning and Development Department. I'll read the recommendation into the record. Staff is requesting adoption of the proposed ordinance to update the city's comprehensive plan and to transmit the 2015 evaluation appraisal review-based amendments to the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity and all the other applicable agencies as required by state law. Just to provide some basic overview before a consultant comes forward, as the Mayor and Council is aware, state law requires that every 7 years the city update its comprehensive plan. The last time North Miami updated the comprehensive plan was back in 2007. So the city is due for an update this year in 2015. You notice that as a part of your packet, we have as attached to your staff report a copy of a notification letter that was drafted by our city manager that was sent to the Department of Economic Opportunity, and it essentially outlines the city's priorities for the 2015 comprehensive plan update. Even though the process starts at the local level, certainly state law requires that it be transmitted to the state for review and for final approval. So as a part of that transmittal, the city has to meet certain criteria to satisfy the state requirements. So I just want to point out very quickly for the benefit of the public, for those that have not been as involved in the process, in terms of the comprehensive plan update, when we talk about the ear-based amendments and the transmittal, we're really referring to the two-part process of both the goals, objectives, and policies that outlines the framework for the policy and for future decision making. And then also we have the pictorial version that you'll see in the future land use map. So as we engage in the discussion tonight, when we say comprehensive plan and comprehensive plan area-based amendments, we're really referring to the two-pronged document that we have, both the goals, objectives, and policy that's in text form, as well as the pictorial version of your comprehensive plan, which is found in your future land use map. So as we know, it's been an extensive process. The last time that we went through this discussion in 2007, there was excessive discussions about heights and density, and here we are again 7 years later, and of course it's a topic of importance. So I'm going to turn it over to our consultant, Michelle Melgren, that's going to walk you through the salient points of the comprehensive plan update for 2015 to discuss how we started or embarked on this experience, some of the highlights in terms of the recommendations that were made across the 12 chapters and where we are tonight in terms of the discussion for consideration of approval. So Michelle Melgren, I'm going to bring her forward to provide an overview of the plan amendment.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the Council. My name is Michelle Melgren. I'm the president of the Melgren Planning Group with offices at 3550 Northwest 53rd Street in Fort Lauderdale. I'm here tonight with one of my staff planners, Eric Swanson, who's going to be assisting me with this presentation. We have a structured presentation that I'm going to get to in a few moments. But while IT works on some technical difficulties we have here, there are a few things that I want to state for the record. I've been working with government as a consultant and as a government employee for over 30 years, and I have seen this process unfold in communities around South Florida. And it is fantastic to see, and I am greatly impressed with the amount of community concern and participation that we see here tonight, regardless of which side of the issues that you stand on. But having said that, and knowing that I see T-shirts here and red shirts here, it tells me that I need to clarify a few issues, because at this stage of the process, I know that there can be some misinformation or some rumors around, so I want to clarify some things. First of all, we started this process last fall, in the fall of 2014, and at that time, the contract that we entered into, we as the Melgren Planning Group and the city, was very limited in scope, and it did not include a review of density and height. And why was that? Well, I wanted it clear that we would not be doing that because the budget for the project did not contemplate that. To properly assign density, and I'm going to get to height in a moment, but to assign density, you have to analyze the parcels in the corridor, you have to understand their size, their configuration, how they relate to the right-of-way, their access. You need to consider the socioeconomic conditions of the area in which you're planning to add density or even height. And we did that analysis in 2007. And at that time, we produced a plan that was good, a very good plan. The economy went south. This time, the analysis we did, that analysis didn't really occur. And for the record, I have to say that I'm not professionally in agreement with the way the plan has evolved, although I have a deep appreciation, please understand, for what the city desires to achieve in terms of redevelopment and development activity. I want you to understand that when you draw a line on a future land use map and you say that the height will be here or the density will be there, the line you draw is hard and fast. It's not a conceptual line of what might happen on the corridor. It is a parcel-specific line. And so without that analysis that I just mentioned with regard to the parcels and the right-of-way and so forth and how the development will work, you have no way of knowing for sure what you are considering is even feasible. The second thing I want to point out that's very important, because we've had these conversations at prior workshops, and that is it's important not to confuse density with height. You can see height. It is your urban form. It is what you see in your city, but you cannot see density. You can have a tall building with few units in it, or you can have a shorter, squatty building, if you will, with many units in it. But the important thing to remember, and this is going to play into the discussion you're going to have tonight, is that there needs to be a correlation between height and density. So in other words, if you're contemplating going higher, it's because you would want to allow more density. And there's a concern, or a desire expressed, I should say, to see heights on some of the corridors at 300 feet. But the density that was recommended is 25 units to the acre. Now, I will tell you that 300 feet is a very urban height. That's 30 stories. But 25 units to the acre is a very suburban density. That's a townhouse development, or maybe a garden apartment development if you had lots of open space. Having said all of this, I think the plan that you have before you is good. I'm not sure without the analysis that I mentioned that it's going to achieve what you want to achieve, but it certainly won't do any damage. And finally, the last thing I would like to point out is the plan you have before you and the recommendations that you are considering tonight are the result of a joint workshop that occurred between this City Council and the Planning Commission. As some of you may know, there was a Planning Commission meeting that happened subsequent to that joint workshop, and there were recommendations made by the Planning Commission. Those recommendations are not considered or included in the document that you are considering tonight. In deference to the Planning Commission, of course, we will bring those forward at the appropriate time and discuss them, but again, they are not in the document that we are asking you to consider to transmit to the State Land Planning Agency. So we're going to provide you with a presentation. We're going to give you a very brief background. I think you've heard it several times, but just for the members of the audience that may not have participated through all the workshops. Then what we're going to do is to provide you a summary, a list of all of the substantive changes that resulted from that joint workshop. Then the presentation is going to go through and talk about each of the recommendations individually. And then after that, we're going to have a discussion of each of the corridors one by one. And I have provided to you on the dais 2 pieces of paper, a chart that looks like that, the city manager is showing you, so that you can put them side by side as we talk about each corridor and see what is existing in the plan now and what resulted from the joint workshop, what is proposed. And with that, we'll go ahead and start this presentation. I'll do the first part of it. So we're going to do the overview of the updated plan. This is the review and the transmittal to the State Land Planning Agency at this juncture. Again, as Tanya Wilson-Sejour mentioned, this is required by Florida statutes, Chapter 163. The purpose of it, of any comprehensive plan, is to ensure that you have adequate facilities and services to serve development. And the comprehensive plan is a policy document. It's a guide for future development. It is not zoning regulations. Zoning regulations implement a comprehensive plan. So what we looked at in this update were the changes to state law. That's the minimum statutory requirements for this type of plan update. We added a climate change element. We updated the transportation element to add the addition of a transportation oriented development, or a TOD overlay district. We added some redevelopment policies in the economic development element and incorporated the capital improvement element and the water supply plan update, which is required. Go ahead. What do you do to it? Okay, we need IT help here. It's not functioning. Okay. So go back. So where we've been, just to recap, if I may, February 26th, we had our first public workshop on the west side of the city. April 29th, we had a second public workshop on the east side of the city. On June 10th, the Planning Commission recommended greater density and height, and as a result of that, I suggested that we have a joint workshop of both the City Council and the Planning Commission so that there's some consensus. We had that joint workshop. There were policy changes recommended. That is what is before you this evening. At August 4th, there was another Planning Commission workshop, and they recommended approval with additional policies, again, which we will discuss as we talk about the corridors one by one. So the recent changes resulting from the joint workshop, as I said, we're going to go through the list and then discuss them one by one. And at this juncture, I'm going to ask Eric Swanson here to go through these with you.
Okay, so the overview from some of the recent changes included reassigning bonus density. We addressed heights on major corridors. We also took a look and expanded on policies related to the FEC passenger stop, which is programmed for the city of North Miami. We, as the TMPG team, we also established a planned community design overlay, which actually addresses all the major corridors within the city. We expanded the NRO boundary. We also evaluated the land use amendment approval process, and we also expanded certain policies and entitlements related to the Central Business Commercial District. So we're going to go by this item by item and to get more specific. Okay, so what you're seeing before you right now is what's existing. So we evaluated the bonus density. You have your number of bonus units. commercial square footage, and all of this is assigned within the neighborhood redevelopment overlay. Now, the way it was established was you had these three different pots. 1,800 units were going to be located within the Central City District, which is a smaller node of the NRO. Anywhere within the NRO, which is a larger area, and you'll see an illustration to show where exactly that is in the city, you had 2,200 bonus units, and outside of the NRO, you had 1,000 units, and that could be assigned anywhere in the city if it was requested by a certain development request. In addition to that, you also had commercial square footage of 375,000 feet within the CCD. You also had 375,000 additional square feet anywhere within the NRO. There was also, so what we did was we assigned those bonus units within the NRO, and we increased it to 2,500 bonus units. And then anywhere outside the NRO was going to be 2,500 units as well. And all of this was the result of the joint workshop, and it was supposed to be market driven. Now here's both tables, before and existing, just to give you a snapshot of what we had and what we, as a result of the joint workshop, have before you today.
IT needs to do something for a moment.
Excuse me.
Mr. Manager, can we please ask the people from the outside to
So it's not showing on the TV? No. While we wait for the benefit of the members of the audience, the signal has been lost so that the council cannot see the images of this slideshow on the screens before them, and so IT is reconnecting it. Still not showing. There we go. Okay, I'll do the next one. No, because it doesn't show for them. They can't read that. They cannot read that. Go ahead.
Okay, we're back on. And finally, once we evaluated the reassignment of bonus density, one of our recommendations as the consultant team was that we focus the bonus densities to the corridors, the major corridors. There's a big problem for us when the focus of allowing those bonus density units outside of the NRO, and we're increasing all this height along all these major corridors. So the focus really needs to be those corridors.
So then we talk about the heights on the major corridors. We established the Planned Corridor Development Overlay District. Again, this is all a result of the joint workshop that had heights up to 300 feet, densities of 25 units to the acre. I'll go back to my opening comments. That's a very urban height, but a very suburban density. And an FAR of 2.0, which is considered a fairly suburban floor area ratio. It's a measure of the floor area of a building to the area of the site. We required compatibility and transition standards for urban form because we're worried about the integrity of the single-family residences adjacent to the PCD overlay. And the PCD corridors include Northwest 119th Street, Northwest 7th Avenue, Northeast 125th, 123rd Street, Northeast 6th Avenue, West Dixie Highway, and portions of Biscayne Boulevard to the very north, not proximate to 125th or 123rd. So here's a chart that displays, I want to make sure it's on, the heights on the major corridors as they exist, and you have this chart before you as well. You can see it's marked heights on major corridors existing, and it goes through all of the corridors, and you will see for 7th and 119th, it's a height of 55 feet. Currently on 6th Avenue, it's a height of 110 feet. On 6th Avenue south of downtown, it's 75 feet. On 6th Avenue, within the NRO and the CCD, it's 35 to 110 feet. It varies, and there are bonus incentives. That's the heart of the downtown. 125th Street, it's 35 feet to 110 feet, again with some bonus incentives. Dixie Highway in the NRO and CCD, same thing, 35 feet to 110 feet. And then north and adjacent to Biscayne Landing, 55 feet and 75 feet for mixed-use medium, and south of Biscayne Landing, 55 feet. That is what is existing today on the existing future land use map. Here's what is proposed as a result of the joint workshop. And again, you can put your charts side by side for a comparison. So on 7th Avenue, it's going from 55 feet to 300 feet with a stated density of 25 units per acre. On 119th, it's going from 55 feet to 300 feet with a density of 25 units per acre. On 6th Avenue, north of the downtown, it's going from 110 feet to 300 feet and mixed use with 25 units to the acre remaining. That's what it is now. On 6th Avenue, south of the downtown, it's proposed to go from 75 feet to 300 feet, but 25 units per acre. 6th Avenue around the NRO and CCD, where am I here? 300 feet. 125th Street up to 300 feet from 35 to 110. And on West Dixie, 35 feet to 110 will go to 300 feet under what was proposed as a result of the joint workshop. Go ahead. I'm sorry. And Biscayne Boulevard remains the same, south of Biscayne Landing. Correct. So then, to address the upcoming transit station that you're going to have that is programmed for the city of North Miami, we established a transit center overlay district. It's basically a quarter mile to a half mile walk from the anticipated location of the transit station. We are envisioning moderate to high density developments, mixed use in character, and interconnected with other uses. Should be highly interconnected with multimodal transportation and a prioritized creation of a complete streets network if you want. Having said that we have created this transit center overlay, there is nothing in the comprehensive plan that will implement it that comes with your land development regulations, which I understand from staff will be kind of a part 2 of this project, an RFP that will be issued toward the end of this year. We then created the planned community urban design overlay. It encompasses 180 acres and allows for the following maximum allowed development. And this is Biscayne Landings or Sole Mia. 450 feet or 45 stories, 40 dwelling units per acre, 4,390 residential units, 4,315 multifamily units, a 3-star hotel, and approximately 1.5 million square feet of commercial office, vehicle sales, display, institutional and retail uses, 37 acres of recreational community, open space, parks, and what have you. And I'm going to ask the city manager this question, but I believe that you are under a contract or an agreement with them, the developer, or negotiating this level of development. This is for Biscayne Landing.
Yes, actually it is.
Okay. So this reflects what the city is contemplating and has been discussing with the developer. Go ahead and do this one. We're disconnected again.
So what is the internet? Is the Wi-Fi?
can't see the points anyway. Oh, but even when they project, they're so small, I can't see them anyway.
It's,
So we might as well. Hmm? Yeah, we have it here.
yeah, that's it.
Yeah, you can continue because we have a copy. We have paper.
Yeah, so we did that one, okay.
Okay, so per the joint workshop discussion,
It's gonna be-
there was a request to expand the south end of the neighborhood redevelopment overlay to northeast 123rd Street between northeast 8th Avenue and northeast 10th Avenue, and that is on the southern boundary of the line, the dark black line you see there before you. Another discussion that was brought up was the land use amendment approval process.
Talk about this. There was a spirited discussion regarding this. This recommendation is in the plan, but I want to call it out specifically because there was a spirited discussion of this. And that was that land use plan amendments are proposed to require a majority and not a supermajority of the city council. That is what is before you in the document you have right now. Also, another thing that was discussed at the joint workshop was that bonus units, and you have these 5,000 bonus units available in the city, will be offered through a development process or a development agreement that expires after 24 months and is approved by resolution. The intent of that was to try and streamline the process a little bit to make it more developer friendly, while still allowing the council to retain control over development. All right, so now, so we've lost it again. Okay, so now we're going to go corridor by corridor with the charts that you have in hand, and I guess have a discussion, Mayor, or how would you like to proceed with this?
Well, I'm open for any suggestions, opinion as to how to proceed.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make one suggestion before we open things up to public comment. The supermajority issue that's currently lumped in with everything else, I'd like to remove that from everything else and have it a standalone vote and vote on that first before we open everything up. Because I think at least a third of the comments we're going to hear tonight are going to address the supermajority. If we can address that now before we open the whole plan up for public discussion, I think that may or may not save time, I don't know. But I would motion that we remove the supermajority item from the plan in its entirety and have a standalone vote on it first.
I just might add that perhaps it might be a wise decision because it's going to take a supermajority vote to recommend these changes that are before you. So probably considering the supermajority issue separately is a prudent way to proceed since we're in the transmittal stage.
Mr. Attorney, do we need public hearing on that? No. Before we,
I would have, on this item, yes, I would have I would invite the public to speak if they desire to speak on this item. And then you vote on, well, actually, you can vote to remove it because you're going to consider it.
First
So
we have to
yes,
vote to remove it.
we're just removing it.
Yeah.
We're not going to consider it. So yes, you can vote on that first, and then we can proceed.
Okay.
My motion is to remove the supermajority issue from the plan in its entirety.
Okay.
And I
All right.
second that.
Mr. Clerk, you want to call a vote? Any other comment?
But you want to exclude it, and we're going to vote for it separately as an element?
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Clerk?
Motion was made by Councilman Galvin, seconded by Councilman Desume. Would you like a roll call vote or a call vote? What is required?
Roll call.
And this would require, obviously, a supermajority.
Okay. Councilman Galvin,
Yes.
Councilwoman Keys,
Yes.
Councilman Bieneme,
Yes.
Councilman Desume,
Yes.
Mayor Joseph.
Yes.
Councilman Galvin's motion was approved 5-0.
And
Now,
for the record, that's policy 1.0. 12.3. On page
Mr. Mayor, I'd like
1S4.
to now make a motion that we retain our supermajority policy under 1.12 going forward.
I would second that.
Retain it?
Right, so that any zoning change going forward would still require a supermajority, just like it does right now.
That would be the case.
No, that's his motion,
That's my motion.
and it is seconded by Vice Mayor. Now we need public hearing, right?
Yes.
Public hearing is now open. The way it is right now is that you need a super majority, which means 4 votes out of 5 for any major modification, zoning modification to be made. We need 4 out of 5. And,
Mr. Mayor, the proposed one take away the supermajority and it become a simple majority right now, the way it is in the policy.
no, but what we voted is to remove that item and discuss
put it
it,
up, okay.
yeah, and discuss it separately.
And now that we're talking about it separately, my
Okay.
hope is that we would keep the supermajority in place, simply because zoning changes neighborhood by neighborhood can get very controversial. I'd like to keep the supermajority in place. My microphone is on.
If-
Public hearing is open?
May I ask a question?
Go ahead.
If we don't get a supermajority yes, we still can't undo the supermajority without a supermajority voting against it.
And my belief is, without a supermajority in place tonight, we're gonna save ourselves hours of discussion and end this in about 5 minutes. So if we're gonna have discussion on zoning changes, we're gonna have to have it under the policy of having a supermajority in place. So that's why I wanted to remove it and have that vote first. And we can go from there.
Yes, agreed.
So
Is this public hearing or is this
Yes.
The
open?
public hearing now.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. My name is Kevin Burns, 2065 Alamanda Drive. What a shocker that you're now dissecting the plan and taking individual items out, because you're going to now have public hearings strictly on Mr. Galvin's issue, and then you have to open public hearing on all the issues that are coming before this. So we're not going to be saving any time tonight. I just received a document from a homeowners association that says they're in favor of keeping the supermajority to serve as the watchdog of the council from runaway growth. Folks, you are elected by individuals of this community to represent us. You don't need each other to babysit each other. It was a mistake to put the majority rule in 6 years ago. I was the mayor at the time. It was put in at the 11th hour to compensate and to appease a few individuals that still are screaming no to growth, but it's so that we wouldn't control, that we could control runaway growth, exact same thing that they're saying 7 years later. What has happened in 7 years? Nada, zero, nothing in this city. We're a stagnant, dead city. You all are accountable to your community. We trust you. We will hold you each accountable. We vote you win by 1 vote over the next person. You hire and fire the city manager, the city attorney, by a 3-2 vote. You pass a $70 million budget by a 3-2 vote. Everything in this city is done by a majority rule. This country is ruled by a majority. Don't get like Congress that is stale and stalling everything because of politics. I'm tired of one council person or another council person holding something done in one person's district over the other person's district and threatening it. People are not going to come to this community if they have to deal with 4 council votes as opposed to just 3. So let these people speak. Majority rules.
Mr. Mayor, I'm going to jump in there. I have to say that I'm going to save us a lot of time tonight. I vote the existing zoning plan down. Everything dies tonight if we don't have a supermajority going forward. So, so everything dies tonight if we don't keep the supermajority in place. I respect former Mayor Burns' position. I strongly disagree with it. If we're going to have zoning changes, community by community, there needs to be a supermajority in place.
Mr. Bien-Aimé?
And Mr. Mayor, and I thought the way we were gonna vote on the comprehensive plan, it was element by element. That's why I vote in favor of removing that item, then we can vote on it. But since we're not gonna vote like element by element, I don't think we should remove just one item to another. It's better to come with all the amendments and then we vote.
But
if the plan gonna die, we're gonna let the plan die. But
Right. Everything dies right. I'm telling you right now.
Guys,
the existing
we
law.
we cannot continue the meeting like this. This is
the-
not.
the-
we
but
are,
I-
we
I-
already we're doing a back and.
Right. I'm just trying to clarify.
Listen, you can only speak in the audience when you're in front of the microphone.
Mr.
That's
Ma-
the only time you are allowed to speak. Please.
Mr. Mayor,
Okay.
I was just looking to clarify. As it exists now, tonight's proposal only passes with a supermajority. Am I correct or incorrect?
You're correct. Right now, the existing comprehensive plan as proposed requires a supermajority vote.
So if you would like to see any changes or anything further, you want to keep the supermajority in place. Because I'm throwing my cards down on the table. I keep everything as it exists now in place, which is bad if we keep the supermajority. I mean, if we disregard the supermajority. Yes, yes. I know what I'm doing. Gentlemen, and Mr. Manager, we have a sergeant at arms. Please, it's only fair if I get to speak and the community gets to speak when the microphone is open. It's not fair if we have, no, don't call him forward, don't call him forward. I'm just saying, shouts from the audience, I'm not in favor of. I've asked that we have a standalone vote on the supermajority to keep it in place. Some
Not
of
to-
you who oppose me on that favor higher density. You can't have it both ways. I'm saying I vote everything down tonight if we don't keep our supermajority in place.
Is this public forum still?
Yeah. Public hearing.
Terry Dellerson, Bayview Lane. I'm council mayor. I'm in favor of Councilman Galvin's proposal. I've lived in the city for 35 years. The city has basically a small town feel to it, and that won't continue to be if it's overdeveloped. And I think there's something that all the studies and surveys and charts and graphs don't show is something called quality of life, and I think we would lose that if development got out of hand.
Craig Liederman, District 3. So what you're proving to
Put in
us
your
right
full
now...
address, please. Put in your full address.
Okay, 12530 Northeast 4th Avenue. So what you're proving to us right now is why we don't want a supermajority. So that two people can't hold up a whole entire democracy, which is the majority vote. We are a democracy. This is America. We will stand by that. Scott, you are wrong. You are completely and utterly wrong. You're proving to us
Until I'm on your side,
why we
and
should
then I'm
not have a
right.
supermajority, sir.
I'm going to hold my tongue, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, please,
I'm
please.
sorry.
This
I'm
is a
sorry.
public hearing.
We're
Let-
going to be here till 2
Let
a.m.
them speak.
I can speak.
This, now, listen, Mr. City Attorney, please, we need guidance as to what will be allowed here in this meeting. Because I'm not going to stay here till 2, 3 o'clock in the morning just because people are not being civil to it.
Mr. Manager, yeah, we've got to stop. Guys, I'm going to be
Okay.
respectful of you as long as you're respectful to us. You've been shouting already as the meeting's been going on. I'm not going to tolerate that. I will shut up for the remainder of public forum. I'm shutting up now, the remainder of public forum. But it's got to be both ways. If we're speaking, it's not fair for you guys to shout from the audience.
My name's Laura Hill. I live at 13075 Griffin Boulevard. This comprehensive plan process has been a long road throughout this year. There's been a lot of workshops. A lot of the members of the crowd have been at the workshops. We've read the plan. We've invested our time. That said, and myself included, that said, listening to Mr. Galvin's proposal, I would rather see this plan be shot to the ground tonight than have a council person sit up here and tell us, basically hold this city hostage to get his way. So all of that time that we spent, I would rather than being basically railroaded, I want to see it go right into the trash.
Mr. Mayor, I'd move that we vote this zoning change down then, so that we can have no further growth in the city, and we can. I'm sorry, I said I would shut
Yeah,
up.
but we
then,
still
but
have
I'm
a
sorry,
motion
I'm sorry.
with the public hearing
I'm as
going.
passionate about this as you guys are. I apologize that I'm letting those emotions bleed in.
Yes, sir.
Yes, my name is Justin Susi. I live at 13080 Coronado Drive. And I do believe in certain cases a supermajority is important. The majority of states for important legislation, such as changing your constitution, does require supermajority. In 1997, proponents of a measure that required supermajority and lost because they had a simple majority went to the appealed it to the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals, and they rejected the challenge and wrote, and I quote, "The Wyoming had the right to prevent abuse of the initiated process and make it difficult for a relatively small special interest group to enact its views into law." That case continued and went to the Supreme Court, which the Supreme Court upheld the court ruling that a supermajority was needed. Thank you.
I'm going to veer off the supermajority a little bit and talk about the comprehensive plan, which of course is connected to the whole supermajority issue.
We are only talking about the supermajority issue now, so we can move ahead. But you will have your opportunity
All
to.
right, I mean, they're connected, but
Yes.
okay, I'll wait until they're finished.
Good evening, Council, Mayor. Good evening, Mrs. Malcolm. Thank you very much for your clarification on the plan and on the adjustments that were made and the considerations in the beginning of this meeting. It's very important that you, as the Mayor and Council, understand that when this study went through this last time, they were not taking into consideration some of the things. Interestingly enough, I support the supermajority, and I'm going to explain the reverse side of why I support a supermajority. Why should a developer who owns one parcel of land dictate to 15 homeowners that he's going to put a 75-foot story building next to your single-family home? Tell me that. Do you want somebody to put a 75-foot building next to your single-story home? I don't think so. So we talk about special interests, who dictates who what. We do not live in a democracy. We live in a republic. To the republic for which it stands, which means you guys up there are our trusted servants. You're here to do your job, to do what's best for the entire city, not for a special interest group. And by the way, I live at 1150 Northeast 123rd Street. It is my only and primary residence, which means I live here, I vote here, I work here. I have a special interest in this city. It's called home. So on that note, thank you, Scott.
William Welsh, President of San Souci Homeowners Association. We were the ones that made a resolution.
We still need your full address, Mr. Walsh. I'm sorry.
Beg your pardon?
Your full address for the record.
11800 118th Street. In regard to comprehensive plan, before the council, the board of the San Souci Homeowners Association unanimously supports smart growth and as a clear view of the city's future. To accomplish this, we must maintain a supermajority as a watchdog to protect the city from runaway growth. This means that people serving the community can stop 300-foot buildings next to single-family residents. We strongly support the supermajority vote, and we're all in favor of it. And part of my board is here tonight to confirm that this is what the homeowners want.
I support the majority. Betty Antonia Andrews, 2015 Northeast 120th Road.
Esther Blinn, 1990 Northeast 118th Road. We very carefully and thoughtfully for hours literally considered our resolution and spoke with our members and our association, and we strongly support the supermajority, as we said, as a watchdog to runaway growth, something as important as changing the quality of life, the nature of the growth, etc., requires a supermajority. And it's not true that nothing has happened. We have Sole Mia, we have all sorts of things, and we didn't sit around and do this lightly. So I'll pass up copies for your consideration when you vote.
Mayor and Council, my name is Bob Pashon, 13005 Coronado Terrace, North Miami. Supermajorities are in place for a reason. I've heard people say tonight, this country works off of a majority system, not for the most important elements. When we had 13 colonies, 9 of them needed to endorse the Constitution. In 2015, if there's going to be an amendment to the United States Constitution, 2/3 of both houses need to agree upon it, and 3/4 of the states need to ratify it. Supermajorities are reserved for the single most important decisions and choices that people need to make. Height and density in the city changes the face of the city irreversibly and forever. And if you can't get 4 guys on the committee to agree that it's a good idea, maybe we're moving too fast. A supermajority validates a good choice. There's no good reason to change that requirement back. Thank you.
1031 Northwest, 136th Street. I salute everybody. And the supermajority, we're going to talk about it. We have time. We're going to take time. Everybody, it's like a fruit. Everybody have to take a little piece. So we're not going to go fast on it. All I have to say, a word from us. I invited a lot of people over here, and they told me to say something. All citizens, authority, resident out of North Miami, the mayor and staff are the heart of the city. Let's all boost them with all good positive thinking. When the heart functions well, we all feel good and we move better, much better. Let's drop the holding back on the past. Let's put a zillion light on North Miami City, or good thinking. Take off city of North Miami on the rivers. Start moving it on the process. And we all find the right direction together. As I want you to say, let's move with the mayor and the staff. Bad thinking, past, we are on the future now. Let's move on together. Thank you.
Louise Poe, 12913 Exora Circle, North Miami, Florida 33181. Actually, echoing that, what I wanted to say is how wonderful it's been as I've been coming to more and more meetings, seeing the new mayor working so well together with the other 4 council people. I didn't have time. I actually didn't know if there was a place online to look up how many times you have come in with a 5-0 vote since the mayor has taken over. And I appreciate that, and it means that you're all working together. Our country is divided. I hate that our country is divided. I hate that our residents feel divided. You are all together so much of the time. Why mess with something that's not broken? Leave it alone. You're doing a great job.
Camille Merlis, 13015 Northwest 7th Avenue. So I'm here to, I think the supermajority issue, for any good issue that drive our society, supermajority is the proper way to go. That's why I'm here to support the position made by Councilman Galvin to go ahead with the supermajority. Thank you.
Good evening, Council, Mayor. My name is Eddie Moliner. I'm at 1875 Keystone Boulevard. And as a history teacher, I will tell you that it hurts to hear some of the comments of people saying that our Constitution, our legislative branch, has not worked. I think our country has been for over a couple of hundreds of years working, and I think that we should all be proud that we're living in a country with democracy, that we all have a chance to speak. And I don't know why I hear here that the supermajority is the evil thing. I believe, like the person before me said, that they have been working together, and we see a lot of 5-0 votes. Let's not focus on the majority vote as the evil thing. I believe that any good plan will be able to get at least 4 out of 5 votes. So let's not think that the majority vote is the evil thing. I think that our mayor and our council are doing a great job, and I believe that there's a plan that is good. We should be able to get 4 votes. That's not a problem. So let's not look at the majority vote as the evil. Let's look at it as, if we get 4 people in the council and mayor to vote on it, it's a good plan. Thank you.
Good evening, Karen DeLeon, 1935 South Hibiscus Drive. I support the councilman in your motion. I do agree that if four out of 5 of you agree on something, I would think it's a good idea. In terms of the specifics going forward, for those of us, myself at least, I can't get an understanding around every single detail that comes up in the plan. I can trust that going forward, that when somebody wants to build something, if 4 of you can look at it and agree that it's a good idea, that's a good idea. Going into the future, if we rely on only 3 people and a future council, we don't know which way that can go. So it's not just the 5 of you sitting there, it's the council that comes into the future as well. So that's what I'd like to think about, is I trust the 5 of you, but I don't know who's coming next. So I do support you, Councilman. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Michelle Togno. I live at 1845 Alamanda Drive. I grew up at 1840 124th Street, or it's Laurel Lane now. I believe in the supermajority. I think you guys are doing a great job, but my problem is that I grew up in a house that's next to LA Fitness. The traffic is bad. This new building that will be across will be bad. The traffic will get worse. Also, my parents lost, they have no privacy. They just lost their living. I mean, they have nothing with LA Fitness there and people coming and looking over. And now on the other side, there's going to be another huge building. I just feel that we should focus, and it's not just in that area. I would be with this for any area. I don't feel anybody's cost of living or should be taken away. I don't feel that they're right, their privacy in their backyard. We have a lot of kids in both sides. The San Souci Apartments, it's going to tower over there on the other side. It's going to tower over on this side. I don't agree with it, and it's just awful. I think it's awful.
Gail Kornblum, 12785 Maple Road. I also support the supermajority. I think that in the city council meetings that I've been coming to, every important decision has had 4 or 5 votes. And every motion tonight was passed with at least 4 votes. I don't see a reason for a majority decision on very important decisions such as a comp plan and rezoning. I would love to see a supermajority put into place for hires and fires within the city too. I think that these are very important issues, and I think that it's very important for a council to be able to come together, put their heads together, and reach a very high consensus opinion. Thank you.
William Simpson, 2005 Alamanda. I support the current way it is with a supermajority and would say this: if you look at a federal grand jury, when they decide to indict somebody, they have 16 people in agreement. Thank you.
Dr. James B. Tracton, 12700 North Bayshore Drive, North Miami, Florida. I agree 100% with Councilman Galvin. There's no question about it. I've been here 48 years, and I know what it is to put large towers near homes. It's terrible. But I understand what's going on here tonight. The rich developers and their rich lobbyists have paid a lot of people to be here to differ with the normal people. And I don't agree with them one bit. I've been a Deputy Attorney General. I've been a lot of things. And I'm a lawyer also. And there's no question about it. Scott Galvin is correct.
Sylvia Maiolo, 800 Northeast 124th Street. I am an artist, and sometimes artists get confused, and I get very confused tonight because the supermajority look like the super minority, because the supermajority of this North Miami is black, and they don't have the house on Biscayne, on the nicest place. We need just a progress to pass. We need, the city need money, and to build will bring work here. But if we don't do that, everybody's still the same. This city is poorest and poorest, but the super majority that look like the super minority for me doesn't want that.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Howard Tonkin, 12600 Griffin Boulevard. Sorry, Scott, I oppose the supermajority because developers don't want to come to our city if they're scared that one or two people can shut everything down. Now, if we don't have development, we don't have infrastructure. If we don't have infrastructure, what dies is our city. If you go down to the locks at the four most vulnerable water entrances for the sea, to our city, they are from the 40s, 50s. They need to be replaced. We will lose our city if we don't have the money from development to pay for the infrastructure. Our city needs to stop stagnating. We need to move our city forward. Thank you.
May it please the Mayor Council, if I can use this mic. My name is Douglas Hindmarsh. My address is protected by statute. Disclaimer, I am not here as the president of Keystone Point Homeowner Association, nor any of the other emoluments. I'm here strictly as a taxpayer and an individual. The issue at bar is supermajority. I support my commissioner, Scott Galvin. It takes 3/4 of the states to amend the Constitution of the United States. It takes 2/3 of Congress to override the president on a veto. Every state has a supermajority in its state constitution. The irony of this issue is the very person that corrected me at the homeowner meeting, Kevin Burns, not to single him out, he passed the supermajority in 2008 when he was the mayor. Now that he's on the other side of the issue, he is a paid lobbyist, he wants to repeal it because he told me it doesn't work. Doesn't work or not convenient. Just look at the facts as they are. We're not talking about anything else, height, density, sewerage, water. We're talking about supermajority. The issue is, it's worked for us since 2008. If you can show me as the mayor council, in the esteemed body of leaders and policymakers, how it doesn't work, then by all means change it. Otherwise, you are altering the very rules that the directors of North Miami are supposed to follow and have followed to give direction to your city manager and your city attorney and your chief of police. And I think you should keep it until you do some sort of a study and come to an objective, independent, legislative decision. Follow Commissioner Galvin and keep the supermajority. Thank you.
Good evening, Carol Prager, 2509 Northeast 135th Street. There is no one in this room who can school Mr. Galvin on what a supermajority means. He teaches history, and I think he knows a great deal more than most people in this room in terms of how government works and how well government can work. It has been our experience in Arch Creek East, Mr. Galvin, that what you have done for us in our neighborhood, in our district, and in our city has always been a good thing. And we have a lot of faith and a lot of trust in you. I am quite frankly shocked, but I am looking at this as some type of a strategy on your part so that we might better get to the end goal. I think the fear in the room tonight, Mr. Galvin, because those people who came to the podium and lined up and endorsed the supermajority with such passion are sometimes recognized as those people who don't want any growth. And I think that might be a little bit incorrect, but that is the perception. And so for the rest of the citizens in the city who are very, very open-minded about growth and progress and development, there is great concern that now somehow an individual has capitulated to that particular point of view. Knowing you as long as I have, Mr. Galvin, I don't think that's the case. But I want you to be extremely sensitive to the fact that there were many people here who spent many hours and really put their heart into this, hoping that they could have something to look forward to and live a great future in this city. Everyone here is entitled to it. So if you could please explain to us, Mr. Galvin, that by doing this does not mean that we're not going to see bold changes in this city, that we will have development. It will only not be in one district and not in another, and that one district can dictate what's going to happen anywhere in this city. If you can assure us of that, Mr. Galvin, I think that will be going a long way to calming everybody down right now, because I do have faith in you.
Members of the council, former mayor of North Miami, John Stembridge. I would just like to say there are two sides to every issue. All of you are very much involved with Solomay, formerly Biscayne Landing. Unless Dr. Elton Gissendanner, who was mayor before me, when the state of Florida that owned all of that property was going to sell it for developers, and that property, had that been accomplished, would be all high-rises, all of that pristine acres. And he called me and he said, John, our city has a chance to save that property. And he knows I do some writing. He wanted me to write something for the Miami Herald, see if we could get the Miami Herald to back us. We had to go before the voters of North Miami to have a referendum, and we had to have a vote on the council, and it was not a supermajority. It was a majority. You are elected by the people of your district and of this city, the mayor citywide. That's our government. That's the way it has functioned until 7 years ago. Now then, we had a referendum. The people of this city voted to take over the entire debt of what it was called Interam at that time. Took us 30 years to pay it off. Because we saved that property, there is today, we got to annex all of that property, enlarge the whole city limits of North Miami. We got, because we saved it, we got 350 acres that is now beginning to return some
Mayor,
revenue back to us.
Mayor, your time's up, so can you?
Okay, but there's two sides to every issue. That's the point I want to make, is that up until 7 years ago, you were the decision makers, and then the majority came in. Thank you.
Good evening. Robin Latier Tisdall, 2108 Laurel Lane, North Miami, Florida, 33181. So there's been a lot of discussion tonight and some points that I really take offense to, especially racial ones. I happen to live on the side of the people who are considered to be non-growth people. I'm a growth person. I think that North Miami can grow a great deal, but I think it needs to be responsibly dealt with. I do believe in a supermajority. I agree with Councilman Galvin. In addition to that, no one can talk about history, but we've had several history teachers here to reiterate this. I myself am a history teacher also, and no, unfortunately, a lot of people are wrong. In the United States, we need supermajorities to get a lot of things done. And I don't think it's wrong to ask our city to maintain what happens in our government, in our federal government, and along with most of our state governments. Thank you for your time.
Pastor David Dorskar, 13855 Northwest 17th Avenue. I'd like to say just something very simple, that the people have great confidence in who we've elected. As they said before, Dr. Smith, the mayor, Dr. Smith Joseph, all the wonderful councilmen here have done a wonderful job. And in order for them to continue doing that job, we believe that a simple majority should be able to be done. If you look at many of the shirts here, all of them, most of them say simple majority. So if a majority of you agree to something being done, then it should be allowed to be passed. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor Council, Jacques Despinos, 95 Northeast Wind, 131 Street, the former city council, here in this building, and this floor. That was not my intention to come here tonight. I stay home, watching TV and play a little game. But it's in getting to excitement. Too good to pass it through. And I decided to here. One, that was the vote taken earlier in the changing of the vice mayor. You know, you remember now, he was elected, so the mayor for 2 years. During the 2 years, he have a chance for 6 months. All the 4 councilmen have a chance to participate. But this is passed. Now I'm here. Supermajority is the right way to go in this item. There's nowhere else to go. Why? Because lately the city has been trapped under game business. Too many lobbyists. Those people must be registered if you want to be a lobbyist. Okay? Because it's too many activities. Oh, so is my friend. So and so is my friend. I control 3 votes. Well, do it. It's time to stop it. If we seriously, it's time to stop it. I'm for it.
Annie Montgomery, 2082 Laurel Lane, North Miami. I'm in agreement with Councilman Scott Galvin, and I disagree with our ex-mayor, Kevin Burns. He said he made a mistake. Well, if you go back and check the records. That was a 5-0 vote. And Kevin Burns only has one vote, one person. So he really, then 4 other people made a mistake. So that's what I would like to contradict Mr. Burns on. If he made a mistake, then all 4 council people made a mistake also, and I think that is incorrect, after hearing what Mr. Jacques Espinosa just said. Thank you very much.